In this video, I'm going to talk about some of the big mistakes that counselors make. I'm also going to talk about why these mistakes are so important to avoid, and if you don't, they're going to damage your effectiveness as a school counselor. And I'm even going to throw in some tips that'll help you be the best counselor you can be for your students, staff, and families. So this is going to be part one of a series of tips for new school counselors and even veteran counselors. So this video is going to be devoted to building relationships. Before you click off, you need to stay and watch this video. There's a reason why I'm talking about relationships first. Let me tell you about my first year as a school counselor. There was a student, let's say his name was Paul. Paul was in 6th grade. He was struggling behavior-wise, and at that time, I didn't have the skills to be able to support him. So his teacher had problems with his behavior in class, and I also had issues with him when I would go in and do classroom counseling lessons, because at the time, I was part of the rotation, so I had to teach classes every single week. And as I stated before, at the time, I didn't have the skills that I needed in order to be an effective counselor, so I made a lot of mistakes with classroom management. I'll share about that later on if you would like to hear more about that. So there was one time where Paul was being extremely disruptive, and I thankfully had enough sense not to call him out directly in class and go back and forth with a power struggle. So I called him later on to my office and had an individual conversation with him. And it didn't really go well because I didn't know what to do. And I actually kind of stepped out of the realm of the counselor and went into the role of the disciplinarian, which is something you really shouldn't do. And that's something I'll talk about in a whole nother video. I damaged my relationship so bad with Paul. He didn't listen to anything else that I had to say. He was not being receptive to the things that I shared. I was never able to repair that relationship because he moved away. Thankfully, my relationship with Paul didn't trickle down to other students. There are times when I've heard that happen where you have a negative interaction with a student and they'll go off and tell other students and it damages your reputation as a school counselor. Thankfully, that wasn't my case. But I do want to tell you why it's important to build relationships, and I'm going to give you some of the positive stories. One of the key things about building relationships is when you do this, students will do what you ask them to do even when they won't do it for others. There was a time where I had a student, his name was Dave. Not real name, of course. Dave wouldn't perform for any of his teachers. He was disruptive in class. He was really low academically, but he was a sweet kid. So his teachers would always reach out to me and tell me that he was causing disruptions in class. He was walking around the room and getting other people off task. So with Dave, here are some of the things that I did to build a genuine connection with him. I would come in class just to say hello to him, pat him on the shoulder, give him high fives, and even hugs, and just encourage him to do better when he was in school and he was having a bad day. I started bringing him to my office. I gave him snacks. I sat down and talked with him, played games with him. I got to know him as a person, talked about his goals and things that he wanted to accomplish, learned about his family. I just overall, over time, built a really genuine connection with him, to the point where he would do anything that I asked him to do because he knew I cared about him and his success. So then when teachers would reach out to me about his behavior in class, I would just have a quick conversation with him like, Dave, just do what your teacher asked you to do. And I would ask him, what are you supposed to do? And he would tell me, and I would sit there with him just for a few minutes to make sure that he was on task, and he would do it. And the teachers would ask me, how in the world did you get Dave to do what he was supposed to do? Because I can't manage to do it. And I said, it's all about building relationships. Our students have to know that you really care about them and their success beyond school. When you build relationships with students, they respect you more. So there are times when I'm presenting in front of large groups of students, whether I'm in an auditorium, a cafeteria, and I have a mic, or even when I don't have a mic, and I can speak before all 400 students and I can have their undivided attention. No students are talking, and that is no small task. I say that because they respect me. Some of you may even be struggling with getting full attention from your students when you're teaching a class of 30 students in a classroom counseling lesson and you're wondering how I do this. Let me tell you how. I show them that I care about them, checking in with them, greeting them, learning their names. But then when I'm in a crowd with them and I'm trying to tell them something important, one of the key things that I tell them, and you can write this down, I say this in a very small, almost whisper-like voice. I honor your voices. And when you're talking, I never want to talk over you because what you have to say is important. I need you to do the same thing for me. Honor my voice. I'm talking to you right now, and there's something I need you to hear. I've said that before, and it works. Again, it only works because I built a relationship with them. Another thing that I do is our school has a chant that we use, like a call to action or a call to response. So we say waterfall, and the students are supposed to get quiet immediately. But I don't abuse it. I don't call waterfall every time I need to tell them something. So what I do in order to get their attention is I'll pause, stand up straight and tall, look them directly in the eye, and I'll say, I'm not gonna talk over you. I need your attention. And because I built that relationship with them and they know to take me seriously and respect me, they listen to what I have to say. You have to build a relationship with them. You have to show them mutual respect, and you have to show them that you are serious and you be firm, fair, and consistent. Another one of the best reasons to build relationships with you is they'll be human around you. What I mean by that is they'll come to you, they'll tell you jokes, they will laugh with you, they'll tell you some of the things that are going on in their daily lives, like talk about their families and things like that. And when you have students who will come directly to you and start talking to you and tell you jokes and just be human and funny with you, that's how you know you've made it. For example, I love working with kids. They are really funny. There was this one time just recently, I was in the hallway and they love to dap me up and do a fist bump. And this one boy, he came up to me, he put his fist out like this because he expected for me to bump it up. And as soon as I put my hand out, he grabbed it with his underhand and he shook my hand like this, back and forth. He said, gear shift, and I started laughing and he started laughing. Those are the things that I mean when I say, if I hadn't built a relationship with him, if he didn't know that he could come do those things and feel safe with me, that wouldn't work. He wouldn't do those things. And so I tell you this to say, if you build relationships with your students, they will be human around you and they'll be silly and it's okay and you can laugh with them. And going back to tip number one, that's how you know that that student will do anything that you ask them to do because you've already built that connection with him. And then they'll tell you things that they would normally never share with anybody. A couple weeks ago, I had a student come into my office and I thought something was really wrong. And so she was telling me about this boy that she liked. Keep in mind, I didn't ask about her relationship life, and most times, honestly, I avoid that, but they will open up to you and they'll tell you about the most intimate parts about them if you build that relationship with them on the front end. So she was telling me about this boy that she liked. She told me that they had a disagreement a couple days before and she was kind of nervous about talking to him again. And so I did some role plays with her to build up her confidence and self-esteem. We did some problem solving and some conflict resolution, and we practiced how to resolve conflict and disagreements within friends. And when she left my office, she had the biggest smile on my face, and a couple days later, she came up to me and she said, hey, I tried what you did and it worked and we're cool again. Had I not built those connections with her previously, she wouldn't feel comfortable coming up to me and telling me about a boy that she likes. And of course, working with 7th graders, that is a very huge part of their life. The relationships, the friendships that they form when they're in middle school. And if they trust you with those things, that's how you know you've made it. So now I'm going to give you a couple quick tips to build these relationships with students. These are things that anybody can do. All you have to do is listen without judgment. Even when they're telling you the most strange story, which I've got so many things that I can talk about as far as strange stories that students come and tell me. If you want to hear some more about these, type in the comments strange stories and I can tell you honestly some of the weirdest things that students have come up to me and told me. Keep in mind, these stories that I would share would happen many years ago. I would never break confidentiality and talk about things that my students are currently experiencing. So you give them your full attention, you listen without judgment, and you don't give them advice. You can give them feedback, but don't tell them what to do. Guide them in the way to where they make choices for themselves and show them empathy and compassion. Another thing you can do to build their trust and build relationships with them is follow up and keep your word. If you say you're going to do something, be sure you follow up and actually do it. When you show them that you remember something that's important to them, it builds that connection with them and that trust in you. Show them that you genuinely care. Kids have this internal radar. I can't explain it, but they always know when you genuinely care about them. So children can sense fakeness from a mile away. And that's something that I've always known, and that's why I'm always genuinely concerned about my students. It's never an act, and that's how they know I care about them, and that's why they'll do anything that I ask them to do, even sometimes when they're upset. Ask about their daily lives and things that happen with them outside of school. Students are human beings. They have lives outside of the classroom, outside of school, and outside of school-like functions and activities. So ask them about their daily lives. Ask them about their family. Talk to them about their hobbies. Remember those facts and then have follow-up conversations with them later on. They want to know that you care about them as a person outside of school. Be sure to like this video, because when you like this video, it pushes it out to other people who are looking for this, and it shares my channel with others who are searching for this content. That way I can make a bigger impact and help other school counselors and educators meet the needs of students. And if you want to show me support in another way, buy me a coffee at the link below. I love coffee because it keeps my creative juices flowing so I can create videos for you. I hope you come back for part 2 of this video where I talk about the things you should know as a first-year counselor to avoid. In the meantime, if you want to hear some more success stories about middle school counseling and what that's like, check out this video on the screen.